Welcome to Youth and Government PreLeg 2 Press Training. I'm Mr. Gooden. I'm going to be walking you through the training for this session. And this training will be very similar to the online training you received during PreLeg 1. The videos, and slideshows, and documents, and all the information that was made available to you at PreLeg 1 is also available again on the website. So if you would need to backtrack, be refreshed, or you weren't here for PreLeg 1, that's obviously something you can check out. But this particular slideshow is specifically dealing with what you're going to be doing today at PreLeg 2. Okay, your goals for PreLeg 2. It's very similar to what your goals were for PreLeg 1, but some minor modifications. A lot more will be happening today than what happened at PreLeg 1. You'll probably notice there's more people at your location. We'll actually have elections today, so that's kind of a big thing. We'll be electing candidates who will be running for various offices during the March Assembly. So it's very important that during this PreLeg that you have no outward campaign paraphernalia on your person, or you can't be advocating or campaigning for a particular candidate. At this point in the program, you are a press person, and you are to remain unbiased and as neutral as you possibly can. So if you're wearing campaign buttons or stickers, please remove them, and don't be too brazen in advocating for a candidate. Your other goals today there's two big ones. You need to research and write a second legislation story, very similar to the one you wrote for PreLeg 1, except about a different topic. And you're also going to research and write an informal survey story, which I'll explain later in this slideshow what that entails. And those are your two big goals for today. So by the end of the day, you should leave with the information necessary to write those two stories, and have those stories written, as I will mention later, by January 15th. Additionally, photos are always good. So snap some pictures with your phones. If you have cameras, snap them with those, and send them my way. I've attached my email address there. If you do send me some photos, please send also so-called cut line, who's in the picture, what are they doing, if it's not obvious, where are they, is it a committee, are they in the auditorium during speeches, just something so a caption can be written, because if I just get a photo, there's not much I can do without that information. So feel free, and please take photos and send those to me. Lastly, if you have any questions during the PreLeg, you can send me an email. I'll try to check that periodically throughout the evening or during the afternoon whenever you have your PreLeg. If I don't get back to you, I'm obviously occupied with something else, but I will try to check that and answer questions. Also, there's usually somebody at the PreLeg who's been in press before, who's gone through this once or sometimes twice before. So if there is somebody there who's been in the program and kind of knows this routine, I'm sure they can answer any question that you may have. But any specific questions, please send them my way. Okay, what's happening today? Everybody's going through training just like you did in PreLeg 1. The difference today is that the legislators are going to have to be a little bit more, what's the right word? They need to know a little bit more about their legislation than they did in PreLeg 1. They just need to be more informed and debate a little bit more strongly than they did at PreLeg 1. So when you go to committee to listen to the debate, it should be a little bit stronger than it was during PreLeg 1. We're also holding elections, so you'll hear speeches. Elections will be conducted. You guys all get to vote. And these candidates who win out of the various PreLegs will face off in March. So that's the main goals today, or what's happening today. Okay, first thing you need to do. This should look familiar to you from PreLeg 1. You should get a copy of all the bills that are being debated at your PreLeg. The list of bills should be a little bit longer than the list at PreLeg 1. In some cases, they're similar. especially in the northern part of the state, because we you don't the pre-legs don't change that dramatically, but you should see some new legislation. I would like, or pretty much guarantee, that everybody chooses a second piece of legislation, not the same one they wrote before. So whatever you wrote for pre-leg 1 is off the table. It's also off the table for any other writer to write about, because these stories will wind up in the paper, and I don't need, and we don't need, 3 stories about the same piece of legislation. So don't pick the same one you wrote about last time, and have a little discussion amongst yourselves. So before you start picking legislation, you kind of mark off the legislation that was written about for pre-leg 1. So that's your first task, is to choose what you are going to write about. I would ask somebody at the pre-leg to be kind of the recorder, kind of makes the checklist and says who has this particular piece of legislation, write their name next to it, so you kind of have a running record of who's writing about what. You should have that list of bills being debated. If not, see your advisor, see a coordinator, and they should be able to get that to you. Make sure you note the bill number and the high school that is introducing the bill. It's a good idea to highlight that bill on your sheets and write down that information, because that is going to be very important to locating where your committee is going to be. All of this legislation is going to be debated in committee today, so you need to know what the bill number is. That's how all the legislation is tracked throughout the pre-leg. So knowing what the bill is about is not really going to help you all that much in finding where you're supposed to go. So number one priority, know the high school as well as know the bill number. And once again, as I mentioned, check that you haven't duplicated this with other press members. I ask the advisor or one press member to take the lead in guaranteeing that everybody gets a unique bill. Okay, once you've decided what you're going to cover, you're ready to go and begin researching your legislation story. Now, during pre-leg 1, I talked about the steps you need to find committees and all that lovely stuff. I'm not going to go through that again. If you don't know how to get to committee or don't know how the committee thing works, ask somebody to help you with that. If there's nobody there who can help you with that, load up the legislation story video, and that will explain to you clearly how to find committee. You should have a list of where the committees are meeting, and on that list of where the committees are meeting should be the bills and the times. But the specific details of that are in the pre-leg 1 training videos and slideshows, which are located on this website. So check that if you're concerned or confused about how to do that. All right, the other type of story you're going to write is what's called the informal survey. It's a little bit easier. Most of my reporters over the years have a more enjoyable time with this one. And all this is, there's a sample to the left, as you can see. There's also a sample of the article posted on the website that you can take a look at. And all you do with an informal survey is survey people about a topic. You choose a topic, a question, and you go around and ask a bunch of people their opinion on that topic. The key, obviously, to writing a good informal survey is getting a good topic. That's the number one priority, is to get that good topic. And it could be about anything. It doesn't have to be youth and government related. It could be like just kind of a human interest piece about something current going on in the world. Like, obviously at this time, the Ferguson protests have been kind of reverberating around the country. Someone could ask about those. A lot of students will ask about their legislation they're covering, if people support this or are opposed to it. But it's whatever type of topic interests you. Obviously, it has to be appropriate for school, but it's something that we gauge the opinions of the delegates. So think about what you might want to ask them to get their opinions, and be able to write a story about. The structure of the informal survey is pretty simple. We begin with a lead. And a lead, in this case, is just a summary lead in which you state whatever it is you discovered when you asked the question. So if you find that a majority of delegates agree with whatever you asked, or you favor this or opposed to this, your summary lead could be a majority of delegates believe, as in this case, the Chicago Bears will win the 2014 Super Bowl last year, which didn't happen. Or you can have a summary lead where it's split, such as delegates are split about YNG's decision to remove the lieutenant governor position from the program. So whatever your survey yields in terms of answers, that's what your lead's going to be. They're in favor, they're split, they're mixed, they're vehemently opposed. Whatever you get from them is what your lead's going to look like. You follow the lead with an introductory statement, followed by quotations that give those delegates opinions. This is, once again, that paraphrase quote thing we talked about when we did the legislation story. Several believe that the Bears' offense is effective enough to mount a charge in the playoffs. Okay, that's a summary statement or a paraphrase, and then the next quotations obviously will be about the Bears' offense. Quotations that people gave you. A lot of times you can write one introductory statement and have several quotations from several delegates that support that. For instance, if you look at that lieutenant governor position, you might have a lot of people who think we need the lieutenant governor. So your lead is delegates are mixed. Then your introductory statement. However, many delegates think the lieutenant governor position is essential to the program. Period. Then you go to quotes that show that that delegates think it is essential. So that's the process you kind of follow. And in this, you let the delegates speak. Okay, it's all delegates. It's not you. It's not you giving your opinion. This is all the delegates talking. You introduce their quotes with a statement, then you follow the statement with a quotation that backs up that statement. Paraphrase quote rule we've talked about before. One of the questions that always comes up with this: how many people do I have to talk to? The more the merrier. I say 15 is a good number, and try to get a good cross section. Talk to different ages, different genders, different parts of schools. Okay, get a good cross section. Get a good question. Big part of it. Get a good question. Remember, names should be spelled correctly. You always have to get the name spelled correctly. You always have to get the person's job in the program, and you always have to get the person's high school. 3 things anytime you talk to anybody. How do you spell your name? What school are you from? And what's your job in the program? Okay, those are the things. Anybody you talk to, you have to get that information. If you don't get that information, then I'll have a problem with writing or publishing the story because we don't know who that individual is. All right, moving on to summary. Your job. Pick a piece of legislation, different than the one you chose in PreLeg 1. Write a similar legislation story. Remember to get the bill brief. Talk to all the sponsors. Talk to the lobbyists. Go to committee. Talk to other delegates about the bill. If you forgot how to write a legislation story, there's a very short video on the website on how to write a legislation story. Please check it out. Don't kind of wing it. Once again, it follows a very kind of not a rigid, but it follows a structure that I'd like you to follow. Second thing, develop an informal survey by choosing a good question. Do not choose a yes or no question. Okay? Why do you agree with something? Why do you not agree with something? Make sure it's not a yes or no question. Please leave today with the information to write both of those stories. Okay? Finally, you need to email me at the end of this a copy of your second legislation story and a copy of your informal survey story. I would like to have both of those stories by January 15th. Okay? By January 15th. There's a PreLeg 2 press guidelines PDF that is also attached to this website that has my email address and all other kind of has this summarized for you. Finally, you can find this slideshow on the website as well without this great audio in case you just want to review the slides. So with that, I will sign off, and I look forward to seeing you guys all in March.